This is the rear wheel on a 1983 R100RS, and I'm going to have it powder coated. So I need to remove the disc and the bearings. The disc is held on with 5 bolts, and then there are safety straps here used to keep the bolts from spinning. The straps just bend up over the edge of the bolt to keep them from turning, and I've pounded that one flat. So I'll do that on all the others and then remove them to get the disc off the rim. So I use a screwdriver and a hammer to just pound that tab back out of the way. And just need to get it flat enough that I can get a socket on there to get the bolt out. There we go. So I've got the bolts out, and these are the 2 locking tabs that go on to the hub with the little ends that bend up over the bolts. So one of them is for 3 holes and the other is for 2 holes. With the bolts removed, you can just pull up the whole disc right up off the center hub on the wheel, and it's removed. So the front wheel has 2 discs, and they're held with 5 bolts that go all the way through. So there's no locking tabs for the bolts because these are locking nuts. So all I need to do is just unfasten all 5 of those, and then I can pull each of the discs up off the wheel. Now, on one side of the rim is all the labeling with part numbers and wheel sizes, and that's also the side that has the nuts on it. So that's how I'm going to put it back together, and I'm also going to label each disc so that they go back on the same side they were on. Just makes sense to me to try to keep everything the same when I put it back together. So I have the discs off the front wheel, and these are the bolts that hold the discs on. They've got 2 flat washers and the lock nut, and of course there's 5 of them. And I labeled them. So this says label side, meaning it's the side of the rim with the labels, and it has the nuts, and this has the bolt heads. Now when you look at the rim, or the wheel I should say, this is the side that has all the labels, and this is the side which doesn't have any of the labels. So the design is a little different on the 2 sides. So this is one of the brake rotors, and I'm going to refinish it and clean out all the holes. It's got a fair amount of grunge on the front and on the back, but I think with my bead blaster I can clean that up and make it look pretty nice. After I've been in the blast cabinet, I'll take a look at the part and then use a Sharpie to mark areas that need some additional attention, which is a good idea. It's often a little hard to see in there. Now here's a rotor after bead blasting, and you can see the patina on the rotor carrier really came back, and it did a nice job cleaning up the backside as well. After I get the hub blasted, I use some 400 grit paper, and I sand the face of the disc. I want to get any baked on and cooked on brake pad material off of it. So I'll clean both sides, and that will make it easier for the new pads to bed in. So I want to clean out the grease, grunge, and other things that get inside the holes on the rotor. And I use a Q-tip and a little brake cleaner, and I just wet the tip with the brake cleaner, and then kind of swab it in the hole. And it picks up a fair amount of the garbage, and then I'll go through one more time until they come out clean. This material, if it gets on the new brake pads, can foul them. So that's why I like to take the time to go through and clean up all the garbage and get it out of the holes. So that's the pile of Q-tips I just went through to clean out one rotor's worth of holes. And as you can see, they've all got a fair amount of grunge on them. So the last thing I do is take some brake cleaner and clean the rotor surface on both sides, and generally get a fair amount of junk up and off that rotor. I'll also clean it once again before I put the brake pads on it, but I wanted to get as much off now as I can. On the back of the rotor carrier is a marking min 0.18. and that's an indication of the minimum thickness allowable for the disc in inches. So that works out to about 4.6 millimeters. And I've measured my rotors and I'm closer to about 5, so they're in pretty good shape. So I have the wheels back from being powder coated. I had them done in white because I wanted to echo the theme of the R65 bikes that had white wheels. So I'm ready to install the disc on the rear wheel. So it just lays down like that, and then there's the locking tab strips that'll go on, and then the 5 bolts. But I'm going to use a little bit of blue Loctite on the threads when I put them in. And then these get torqued to 17 foot-pounds. Now that I have the bolts torqued, I'm going to pound up the tabs to lock the bolts into the hub. Now I just use a big screwdriver and fold them up. Till they're right up flush with the face of the nut. So I've got all the tabs pounded around the face of the nuts, so that'll keep them from backing out. So I have the discs mounted on the front wheel, and I torqued the bolts to 17 foot-pounds, and I left my labels on until I was all done, just to make sure I didn't screw up and get the wrong disc on the wrong side. So the 2 wheels have all 3 disc brake rotors mounted, and they look a whole lot better than when I started.